This is the Marketing Agency Power Hour, and I'm your host, Cal Wilder. Each week, we'll power through discussions on business challenges, success stories, and game-changing strategies. This show is sponsored by SmartBooks, provider of bookkeeping and accounting for marketing agencies. Let's get started. Welcome. I'm really looking forward to talking to today's guest. He's a marketing leader, an innovative professional, a genuine storyteller, and a strategic creative visionary. He's a client-focused strategist who listens with intention and delivers with precision. He's a respected marketing expert with years of unmatched industry experience. He is the principal and founder at MK3 Creative. Joel Kaplan, welcome to the show.
Hey, Cal, nice to see you, and thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Great. So what is the single most powerful strategy for success in your firm these days?
It's a great question, difficult question, because it's a changing question. But I think what we've realized, especially in 2025, it is about the relationships that we have. How do we continue them? How do we nurture them? How do we make them stronger? And how do we find new ones? Because you can't survive. You have to have a great product, but you have to have good relationships, excellent relationships, and continue to focus on that. I mean, one thing that we've been working on that we've instituted over the past, I would say 12 months, is this idea of a culture of sales, meaning that, as you and I preliminarily talked about a little bit, that our famous auto industry entrepreneur Henry Ford once said, nothing happens until something gets sold. And so it's important that our team realize that we need to be thinking sales all the time, especially in this economy. So relationships are at the top of the list, and also this culture of sales are at the top of the list.
So is marketing an industry where the typical staff are kind of averse to being considered a salesperson, or how hard was it to get that kind of embraced?
Yeah. So, sales is a 5-letter word, but most people would call it a 4-letter word. And it is difficult because everybody thinks that sales is a dirty word and selling is a dirty word, but that's really not the case. Selling is critical to what we do. And what I've asked the team to do is not be a salesperson, but to think differently about sales and selling. So, what do I mean by that? I mean that people need to be able to listen for the opportunities and bring them back to the team. So, I don't want them out there selling per se. We've always taken a team approach to selling, but the idea is that if you have a friend, a colleague, somebody you know in a different industry, and I could give you examples of this, but be open to the idea of listening for opportunities that might be in the marketplace. Bring them back to me or somebody else on the executive team and say, I heard somebody say this or do this, or I've read an article about this, or whatever the case may be. And let's talk about it and figure out next steps together. I'm not asking them to be a salesperson or sell, but I'm asking them to keep their ears open and think differently.
Mhm. How much of the current pipeline would you attribute to that 12-month process?
Well, as 2025 has proven, things are a little bit more difficult out there right now. And I think, a lot of our existing clients have pulled back a little bit. Budgets have gotten tighter, but we've made a concerted effort to go out into the marketplace and talk to other people. I would say that still 80% of our current business is from existing clients, but 20% of our business is from what we're looking at to fill the pipeline. New clients, new projects from existing clients, and continuing down that road. Because I'll give you a funny little thing that my wife always says when somebody asks her what her husband does for work. She says, I absolutely have no idea, but I know he needs a big pipeline. So pipeline is critical to what we do. And so we always have to be working on filling that pipeline, whether it's net new or inline business.
So what prompted you to formalize this building of a culture of sales at your firm?
Yeah, that's interesting question. As I think about that a little bit, I think that, there's two sides to the business. There's the business side, and then of course we develop and deliver creative solutions. So the idea is we talked about there has to be somebody selling all the time. But as I thought about the changing landscape, and to your point, people don't want to think about themselves as salespeople. I wanted to institute things where I could help people think differently about it. So, in other words, how do they go out and become that ambassador or that networker for MK3? So, I think if I go back to the beginning of 2024, and yes, and we'll probably touch on AI a little bit, but the landscape is changing. So, how do we make sure that we stay relevant and are having good conversations? And some of this, I'm not always an original thinker. I don't claim to be, but in some of the conversations that I've had with some of the consultants in my board of advisors, just it kind of dawned on me one day that I really need help because we have not had great success with salespeople in this industry. It's a tough industry to it's a tough industry to get started in. So the idea was, how do I make it more effective with what we have? And that was that idea of culture of sales and making it a mindset more than anything else.
Yeah, I also have not had a lot of success with traditional salesperson approach at SmartBooks in the accounting space. There's just something about what we do that requires, subject matter expertise to be able to impress a small business owner and effectively determine their needs and wants and priorities and put together a solution and have the client view you as an authority. And it's tough to do if you're not, have some finance or accounting background and think a little bit differently, like you said.
Yes.
Now, did you put together this training and development internally yourself? Or you pull in outside resources to help?
Well, we actually do have some outside consultants that have been helping with this. And it's not really a super formalized program, but it's getting more formalized. So in other words, we're looking at ways to develop lead gen, some of which we're doing internally and some of which we're doing externally. Um, but the idea is where it became more formalized is culture index. So what we've done is we did hire a consultant from the company called Culture Index. And what is that? That you've probably heard of the Myers Briggs. You probably took it in college or in your, post graduate work. And the thing that makes the Culture Index different is it's really about working with somebody's strengths, not weaknesses. So we're all a little bit different. We might have similar traits. Like, for example, when people come to talk to me, I don't want pages and pages of information. I want bulleted point information so we can make decisions quickly and know the key points. Whereas other people need to see all the research, all the documents. They like the facts. So the idea is figuring out which people on the team have different personalities, how they absorb information, how they use it, and play off their strengths because you're going to have much more success with working with people's strengths than trying to change the negative to positive because they like what they do. They like the way they learn. But if I wanted to teach you to become a salesperson, or if I wanted to teach you to become a creative director and you're on the project side, that's a much different approach than somebody who's already doing that type of work. And then you can help them be better at their job.
Right. I've got some experience with these different kinds of assessments. How much diversity of the index profiles do you see within the staff at your firm? Because I've used these in the past, but for a lot of the positions I found, I was just getting kind of the same profile for just about everybody, and so indexing wasn't particularly useful for me except for very specific positions.
Yeah, it depends what you're looking to do. For example, and one of the things we are looking for a salesperson, but what is sales today? It's very different. But there are definitely characteristics of people that fit into, let's call it, the hunting sequence. But there are also categories like social ability, um, entrepreneurship, uh, and the way people learn. So the indexing, I think there was 4 or 5 key profiles that people fell into, but it's also things change over time as well. So we started this maybe a year ago, did everybody's index, and we just did it again recently to look at if there were any changes in people's profiles. And people's profiles can change for a lot of reasons. The job requirements could have changed, the personal life could have changed. So the indexing part of it is looking for trends, but also understanding somebody's personality in terms of how they learn, how they absorb information, and how best to work or put teams together. Because in the business world, putting teams together is always critical. I'm not a great note taker, but other people love to take notes and then summarize. So, and then you throw it into AI and it gives you back everything you need. So there's tools out there that help with that now, but there's not an abundance of indexing, but knowing what you're looking for a specific role will help you index to find the right person.
I think it's great, Joel. You put so much effort into understanding and developing your team. I'm sure that's translating into good outcomes for your business. I'm curious how you kind of measure success or assess success for your firm internally, like growth, profitability, or you know, supporting particular causes or industries. Like how do you measure that or can look at that?
Yeah. Well, we talk to our employees on a regular basis. So we have people that do that. As you're probably well aware, culture starts at the top. So we do try to do things that build culture, like an annual offsite building, off an annual offsite meeting for a couple of days where the team goes away. We also try to do a summer outing. During COVID, we met every Thursday without fail virtually to bring the team together. So there is camaraderie that we try to instill. But of course, there's all the metrics that you're well aware of, Cal, from a business perspective, balance sheet, P&L, all of that you have to look at year over year. But the other thing that we measure is our clients. Who are our clients? How many are new every year? How do we continue to fill that pipeline? So I think culture, and it's interesting because if you ask me what the culture of the company is, you ask somebody else, they may see it completely different. But the idea is to make sure we're talking to our teams and hearing what they have to say, and then making sure it doesn't fall on deaf ears.
Are there particular challenges you're facing now that are get in the way of achieving as much success as you'd like to have?
Yeah, business is down a little bit right now. No question about it. There's so much uncertainty in the marketplace. We do focus on financial services, life sciences. We're in Boston. And if you're following the news at all, even just a little bit, the market is a little bit tougher these days. A lot of funding is dried up. People are being a little bit more cautious. A lot of our clients are conservative. I'll give you a perfect example. One of our clients in the financial services space, last year we did, I think it was 4 or 5 videos on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And not to get into a political discussion, but again, if you've been following the news, you understand there's been a lot of pressure on a lot of institutions, whether they be public or private, to pull back their diversity programs or call them something different or refocus them. So that program that we were doing a year ago, 6 months ago, has completely gone away. So we have to look for other sources of revenue from, in some cases, the same clients, but where people were very open or more willing to do programs around diversity, equity, inclusion, which included recruiting, because people were really embracing it, looking for a more diverse audience and being maybe more inclusive. Now they're kind of pulling back. So that's put a little pressure on it. And of course, the uncertainty in the marketplace and the world economy is a little tough right now with the dollar, couple of, a little bit of global unrest, but we're small enough that that isn't going to affect us. But, the change in policy from the government took a direct effect on us. So we need to, again, you go back to the culture of sales, where else can we look for revenue? So,
And you work with a lot of larger businesses, right? Where,
yeah.
where, yeah. So they're going to feel the burn of some of these things, potentially more than certain small business nixes might.
Yes, absolutely. The small businesses are more independent, but the larger publicly owned companies are under a microscope and they're under attack all the time, good or bad. If it's a good thing, great. If it's a bad thing, people are going after it. And there's always two sides to every story, if not many more.
In your experience, how does the current level of uncertainty compare to, early mid 2020 when COVID was first hitting, or like 2009 in the middle of the Great Recession, or maybe the dot-com crash in the early 2000s? Could you have any perspective on how you would compare these different times?
I wish I had a crystal ball. But we're just into it. 2007 is when MK3 started, but we were much smaller then, and we were able to weather that downturn without much of a problem. COVID, we took advantage of PPP, 2 of them. So no layoffs, no cutbacks, no furloughs. We were able to keep everybody on, but there was a switch of the industry, especially on the event side of our business, where things went virtual and video production went virtual. So we were able to pivot along with the market and be able to make up lost revenue back then without tremendous difficulty. Right now, again, no crystal ball. We're 6 months into this, but I'm happy to say, and I've said this to my team many times, I'm hoping that a lot of this is temporary and that 2H looks better than the first half of the year. And in the past couple of weeks, we're really starting to see an uptick in interest, new clients kicking our tires, and some of our existing clients coming back with new projects. So I'm hopeful, but I didn't see DE&I coming, the whole shift there. So am I on the edge of my seat and feeling a little uncertain? Yes. Am I hopeful that things will get better in July through December? Yes. I mean, some people have said to me, well, wait till 2026. So I don't know. Again, crystal ball I don't have, but I'm an internal and eternal optimist. My glass is always half full. So yeah.
So how do you go about managing accounting and finance at your firm? I got to ask you at least a couple of questions about that.
Yes. So I have my MBA and I've learned the basics. I have a business degree and I have my MBA. So I've learned the basics. I always knew my way around a P&L and a balance sheet. And those are two very critical documents when managing a business. But I can't do it alone. So our success has really been a bookkeeper who is at least here twice a month, if not more, if we need it. And I also have an accounting firm that I rely on for some of the more difficult questions, whether it comes to tax reporting, tax filing, or tax questions. And I also have a board of advisors that I can run things by. But the basics are weekly review of the P&L and L and balance sheet, quarterly review, annual review, and every year at the offsite, we look at where we are financially. And then, of course, an accounting firm and then a bookkeeper. Those are the keys for us right now.
Are there particular metrics, business performance metrics that you really like to keep an eye on?
Well,
Probably something about pipeline, I can tell. You're big on pipeline.
yeah, no, and that's important because every week we update project status and opportunity pipeline. So we look at that every week. The other metrics are cash flow and, of course, receivables and payables, but that's balance sheet, P&L's stuff that we talked about. But we also, bigger picture, look at it annually.
Yeah, just kind of how you keep your hands on it because you're not doing it yourself personally, but how do you kind of keep a handle on it so you know what's going on so you can use that information to help manage the firm?
Yeah, and that's done weekly. So we
Okay.
can see what's going on. And then we give updates, or I give updates to the team every week on key things because we don't take an island approach to anything when it comes to projects or opportunities. We're always looking at bringing the best team together to manage the process. So there's creative directors, there's project managers, and then of course there's the people that make the donuts. I mean, everybody has their hand in the not their hand in the project, hand in the so. Uh,
Hopefully not original.
yeah, exactly. A lot of people have their input on projects at many levels, including budgeting. So I used to do a lot of the budgeting myself, but now I don't do that anymore because I do want the input from the people that are doing the work.
So how do you manage that budgeting process? That's been a challenge for a lot of businesses to effectively kind of involve other people and get input from other people, but still keep the budget process on track.
One, it would be good if our clients always told us the truth, meaning, what is your budget? Are there areas we have to cut back on? Do we need to be cognizant of bigger effects like overall budget for the year or the quarter? But most of my team has been with me for a long time, so they're familiar with the process. So often they'll do a basic run through of the budget, and we have spreadsheets and templates that we use. So the process pretty seamless, but often there's other components, meaning we have outside third parties that we have to manage in the process. So often there's pricing that we have to get from our third party providers. Uh, but usually it's a group that will gather all the information, pass it on to me, and then we'll come back and decide on a budget. And a lot of our clients are pretty forthright with giving us information. When it does get competitive, it can get a little tricky in terms of asking the hard questions from our clients. So, do you have a budget range? Is there specific budget? Who else is bidding on the project? So, you want to try to garner as much information as you can because we can be flexible. There's floor pricing that we have to meet, like we have to cover our payroll, but we also know that if we have to be flexible in our pricing, we can be. And most of our clients come back. Often it's once we get in the door, we keep a client for a long time.
Well, that's great. You've got a developed budgeting process like that and are engaging your team and your clients. That's really important. So I'm happy to hear that you've got that in place.
Yeah, we don't bill hourly. Our work is project by project. So that's an important thing to note too. Like we are not officially an agency of record for any of our clients. Every project that we do, we supply a budget to our clients. And in that budget, it's broken down by the rate, which could be daily or hourly, and then the task. So when we supply a budget to a client, they see exactly where all the dollars are going. So there's transparency for that, but there's also project scope. If they come back to us and say, well, I looked and see you put dollars here. Well, what about if we didn't use the dollars there? Can you reduce it? Or can we switch it someplace else? So we really do take a transparency approach on the budgeting process.
And how big, what's kind of the standard range for the size of these projects that you're talking about?
Yeah, it varies a little bit. I think we look to start at 25,000, even though we do projects that are smaller, depending upon who the client is, if we've worked with them before. But we have other projects that we're working on this year that are 500,000, which is getting up there for us. We've done $1 million projects in the past, but I would say safely we're really in that 50 to 150 is a sweet spot for us.
Okay, that's good to keep in mind to think
Yeah.
about this process. Okay. Well, I'm going to move on because I don't want to lose our entire audience talking about accounting and finance here. So looking in another direction toward the future, Joel, what excites you about the future?
The future excites me is that on the event side of the business, live events have come back after COVID. So we've been seeing a bit of an uptick there. On the video side, video's here to stay. You know, when we started pushing video 10 years ago, there were a lot of concerns in the marketplace. How do you get these big videos through the pipeline, right? But now the technology has gotten so good, so that's not a concern. We do know that video's here to stay, but I think what separates us from a lot of the companies is the art of storytelling. So that's continuing as we go forward from here. And how does that art evolve and morph as we do go forward? So, for example, one of the things that we've been seeing is you have so many platforms now for video. So our clients are asking us, how do we take what you're doing and make it multifaceted and used on other platforms? So, you know, you have all the social media platforms that are out there, but if we're creating content for one platform, how do we use it for others? So that continues to evolve. And I think that's a good thing for our business. I mean, you have to stay on top of the technology. You have to embrace it. I know we talked a little bit earlier on, Cal, about AI. I mean, everybody's talking about it and we're embracing, we're looking at it, we're seeing how to use it. And in many ways, it's making us better and more efficient. So I think that as that landscape changes, we just have to know as marketers, as advertisers, how we can use that technology. I mean, in our lifetimes, we've seen so many changes in technology and we seem to get through it just fine. And I think AI is here to stay. How do we embrace it? How do we use it? How do we continue to be storytellers? And then the personal interaction was the thing that we lost in COVID. You know, some people got really comfortable with virtual, but most people like to be, you know, handshake to handshake, eyeball to eyeball, and meet you where they are as opposed to doing everything virtually. So that's what keeps me optimistic at this point.
That's great. Yeah, I remember thinking back now, based on my age. I remember when started using computers in like late elementary school. Then we had the internet, which was I did really discovered that my freshman year in college. And then we had smartphones, like, I don't know, what, 15 years ago or something. And, those are the things that I suspect probably changed a
Yeah.
lot.
I joke with people, I go, you do remember fax machines, right? Like they still have them some places,
The
but
IRS is big on fax machines. My tax partner's always faxing stuff with the IRS.
so it's like the technology changes. I'll admit this, but I still have a landline in my house, for safety reasons. I just haven't gotten rid of it. It's part of a bundle, but it's still there. And I know a lot of people don't. So it's changing. The landscape is changing, but we will continue to embrace it. You have to.
So we talked a lot about what you're doing today, but I'm very interested to learn if we go back, many years ago when you were thinking about what you were going to be doing for a living and where you'd be working. Um, did you ever think you'd be running your own marketing firm and as a business owner and entrepreneur?
Yeah, it was always a desire. I've had a couple of twists and turns in my career overall, but I like I like this part of the business. I like owning my own company, but I've also brought on two partners recently. I had two senior managers that have come on because I realized I can't do it all myself. So I have brought on partners in the business. I always liked the idea. Again, it was the business side of it. I always liked the entrepreneurship part of it. And I also believe that, a product is a product and you could sell products all day long, but you have to figure out all of the strategy that goes behind it. Like, how do you get a product to marketplace? Who do you talk to? And that's the same thing as we were talking about earlier when it comes to the sales part of it, that it's exciting to know that we have a product that's good and that work. So how do you continue to put it in the marketplace? So for me, it was always more the business side than the product side. I love what we do. We have great creative people on staff and they're great at what they do. So we do have a great product. So you can't have one without the other though. So
What was your first job where you felt like you were, managing something, owning something, being an entrepreneur?
well, being a salesperson, you're always an entrepreneur, right? You're always responsible for what you kill. So, or you eat what you kill. But MK3, I'll give you a couple of examples. MK3 went through a couple of twists and turns. But when I was first brought on to this company 17 years ago, 18 years ago, there were three partners. And we quickly realized that one partner was not carrying their weight. We spent a year in court and mediation to extract that third partner. It's probably one of the toughest years of my life in terms of settling up those lawsuits, because that's what it came to. But at that point, I knew I had decisions to make, and I was in a position to affect the direction we were going in. And then, so that was finished in a year. And then 7 years later, the M in MK3 came to me and said, Joel, I'm tired. I want to get out. So some of this was a natural progression, but some of it was love of business from early days. And even there was some little ownership that I had in companies before this as well. So it's been
Yeah,
a progression.
I can tell from talking to you that initial business background in MBA plays a big role in how you can help your clients and how you think about the evolution of your firm.
Exactly. So,
So if you, think back to your early days at MK3 and could give yourself some advice, what would you tell yourself?
do you want to go back to my 5 or 6
Yeah,
lessons?
your six worldly lessons. We can talk about those. Yeah.
We could go to those. But before we go there, I would say one of the major takeaways that I took from that year of court and mediation was don't be afraid to talk to somebody face to face We've learned to hide behind lawyers and process. But in the end, what settled that was me sitting down in a coffee shop with that third owner and saying, okay, let's figure this out. So that was kind of, don't be afraid to really talk to or be in front of the people that you're having conflict with. We all have conflict in our life. It's how you handle it. So if you do it with honesty and integrity, you'll get through it. So, and I truly believe that. And it's kind of one of my rules of thumb. But if you want, I'll give you my 5 or 6 lessons, unless you have other business stuff you want
No,
to talk about.
let's dig into your worldly
All
lessons.
right, here they are. And I've given these to many groups over time. So, number one is learn to ask good questions. It's critical that you ask good questions because, as we mentioned, or I mentioned earlier, a lot of time your clients aren't going to always tell you the truth about what's going on, what's happening behind the scene. But if you ask good questions in a respectful way, you're going to get the answers. But the second part of that, number two, is you got to learn how to listen. Because if you ask good questions and then you're busy thinking about the answer and you don't hear the answer, then you're going to miss the opportunity to either follow on with better questions or really hear what somebody's telling you. Some of what we talked about. Number three, don't hide behind technology. Everybody's got smartphones and laptops and text messaging. I can't tell you how many times I've said to my team or other people, pick up the phone, forget the emailing and forget the texting. Don't hide behind the technology. Number four, don't be cryptic. Don't get to the point sooner. I sent somebody a text this morning. Are you available to chat now? And I thought they would have called me when instead of writing me back and saying, yes, I'm available now. I'm saying, okay, then if somebody says to me, are you available now to chat, I pick up the phone. Or if somebody says to me, can we meet on Tuesday or Thursday at 2:30 or 4:30? I'll send them an invite for 2:30. I won't continue the back and forth. So don't be cryptic. Get to the answer very quickly. Big business question. Don't be afraid to talk about the money. Number five, people know we're in business to make money. That's how we survive. That's how we eat. So you can't be afraid to talk about the money and talk about it head on. What's your budget? How much do you have to spend this quarter? So always talk about the money. And last, which is one of my favorites, never think you're the smartest person in the room. Always be teachable
Yes.
because you can't know it all. It's just impossible. That's why we have boards. That's why we have people that we run ideas by. And that's why people come to me all the time and say, oh, I got an idea. And you have to listen. So never think you're the smartest person in the room.
You know, it's interesting as I reflect back on your 6 worldly lessons there. You know, the one, don't be afraid to talk about the money. You know, everybody's always thinking about it anyway, right? So why not talk about it? That's usually like the number one objection. Well, probably one of the top two objections that someone's always thinking about. I had a business coach several years ago tell me, you know, you and your team, you can't avoid talking about the problems or the potential objections that you think the other side probably has. And just because they're not voicing them doesn't mean they're not thinking about them. Because I can guarantee you they're thinking about objections. It's your job to, you know, figure out what they are and whether you can resolve them or not.
Right. Right. Uncover them. Exactly.
You know,
So yeah, it's important. Have you ever shopped for a car? I mean, that process makes everybody's skin crawl.
yeah.
Well, you think about that.
Mm. Yeah, that's funny about picking up the phone. Like on one hand, you know, I love to talk to people on the phone. On the other hand, I get so many calls from random salespeople that I can't pick up the phone most of the time because I just spent my whole day picking up the phone from salespeople. But when you get the caller ID and or if there's really an issue with one of the people on your team or a client and you got their direct line, nothing beats Nothing beats a phone conversation versus an email string or
Right.
whatever.
How many times have you tried to analyze a text or email? What were they thinking? What were they trying to say? Right.
Yeah.
Forget about the robocalls and the spam that you're getting these days. But, when you're in a conversation with somebody via text or email, it's often hard to figure out really what they're trying to say.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's where I often say, pick up the phone,
Yeah.
reach out. So,
Yeah. And we do some business internationally with our clients and some of our team members. And then you've got to, if you're just doing email or text, then there are cultural differences involved too that are easier to pick up on and deal with if you're just talking to somebody on the phone or a video conference than trying to do it via text.
absolutely.
So I love those 6 lessons. You guess you should patent those or something.
I call them life business lessons because
Yeah.
you can use them in life or you can use them in business. They're kind of interchangeable.
Cool.
Yeah, totally.
So Joel, what do you do? What do you like to do outside of work?
I did play golf yesterday for the first time this year.
That go.
Really bad, really bad.
Yeah.
Would have been better off staying home watching the U.S. Open, but um, big baseball fans. The wife is a big baseball fan, so that makes it easy. We went to the Yankees Red Sox game on Saturday night. We enjoy fine dining and we love a good meal. And we have two cats, which are very important to us and in our lives. My wife is a world famous cat behaviorist. So that's an interesting one. Whenever you tell somebody that, they have a lot of questions. And I think theater, we love Broadway. We love live theater. We're not big on television or the movies, but you invite us to New York or the West End of London, we really do enjoy theater as well. So those are the main buckets. We don't have children. So I know people, well, what about your children? Well, we don't have children, but we do have two cats.
Two cats. Hey, my wife and I are big, big into cats too. We at one point we had 4 cats. Now we're down to 3, but we tended to collect them different places.
Yes.
The first 2 we got from a shelter, but then we found a stray when we were on vacation. We brought home, and then um, one just started showing up at our house for a meal every couple days, and we eventually took him in. So yeah, we've had a diverse group of cats over the years. And then we added 3 crazy dogs that I picked up when I was visiting my team in Jamaica, where we've got an office. I found these 3 young puppies, homeless, who probably weren't going to make it if we didn't bring them home. So I managed at the time to figure out how to get them out of Jamaica and into the United States without, too much trouble. I just did had to extend the trip a couple days.
Yeah. Well, good for you. And that's a great story. Pet people are good people. It takes a lot to own a pet and it's not even inexpensive these days, but they're part of your life. What do you do the first minute you walk into the house? The cat or the dog is there to greet you. So, they really do become part of your lives.
They do, definitely.
Good for you. I like pet people.
Me too. I also have 2 twin boys who are going into high school in the fall, so my house is very lively and active.
Boy, yeah. That's putting it politically correctly. That's your outside voice.
Yeah, they're crazy.
Oh,
So, Joel, if people want to connect with you, what's the best way for them to reach you?
um, probably, through email, which is on our website. You can connect directly to me through mk3creative.com. I will always return a call as long as, like you talked about, it's not spam. But if somebody reaches out, I always return a call or always return an email. It may not be immediately, but I do always get back to everybody. But the easiest way is through our website, MK3Creative.com. You can see the people section. We all have email links. So
That's great. You make that very public.
yes,
Do people tend to abuse that, or they generally respect it?
a lot of our clients have been with us for years. A lot of people know my mobile number. But no, I don't. We do get inquiries, but we're more outward than inward bound. So occasionally we'll get inquiries, but no, not a lot. So, but we're doing a lot of social media these days, which, as you know, I always ask the question, what's the ROI? Which is sometimes hard to measure unless you can directly tie it to revenue. But we are,
That's a whole other episode about how to measure ROI on
yeah,
marketing.
yeah, we're doing more on Instagram, more on Facebook, X, LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the bigger business platform for us. We're posting there more regularly. So, yeah.
Well, thank you, Joel, for taking the time to share everything that you have, how have kind of built a sales culture within your firm, kind of how you apply your business background to managing the firm and helping your clients be successful. So I appreciate the time and everything you shared today.
Thank you. Glad to be here and happy selling to you and everybody. And no, I do appreciate the time, Cal, and look forward to maybe doing it again on another subject in the not too distant future.
Absolutely. And so if you, in the audience, for those listening, if you've learned something today or laughed about something or got upset about something, whatever your reaction was, please tell people about this podcast. Let's get this good information into the hands of other marketing agency owners and business owners and help them with their businesses. So thanks again, Joel. This has been another exciting episode of the Marketing Agency Power Hour. We'll see you all next time. Another episode in the books. Thank you so much for tuning in. For show notes and more, please visit marketingagencypowerhour.com. This show is sponsored by SmartBooks, providing marketing agencies with bookkeeping, accounting, and finance support. With SmartBooks, you gain the clarity and confidence to make your agency a success. Until next time.